The 70s and 80s were a golden time for European gymnastics, with athletes pushing the limits of what the human body could do. But there was one young woman who really grabbed the spotlight in a way no one else did. You know it's the Olympics, right? There's no room for mistakes. One shot, that's it. And then, boom, 10, and another 10. At just 14, Nadia Comaneci from Romania shocked the world by scoring a perfect 10, something that seemed impossible at the time. This wasn't just a win, it was a massive turning point for gymnastics. While we all know Nadia's name now, there's still so much to her story that most of us don't know. The details behind her incredible journey and the secrets of that iconic moment have been kept quiet. Until now. Nadia was born on November 12, 1961, in the small town of Gheorgheni, nestled in the Carpathian Mountains of Romania. From the start, she wasn't like other kids. She was a bundle of energy, always bouncing around, full of giggles, and constantly on the move like a little whirlwind. Her parents, seeing how full of energy she was, decided she needed something to channel it all into. So, they thought, why not gymnastics? They had no idea that this would be the thing that would change her life forever. The moment Nadia stepped into the gym, everything clicked. It wasn't just a way to burn off her energy anymore. It was like the world opened up. She loved everything about it, how her body could soar through the air, the thrill of pushing her limits, and the excitement of mastering new moves. Training wasn't a chore. It became an adventure. Before long, it wasn't about tiring her out. It was about feeding a passion that had sparked inside her. But Nadia's story had even bigger plans. At just 6 years old, her talent was spotted by Bela Karolyi, a famous gymnastics coach who was known for finding young stars to train. He saw Nadia and a friend doing cartwheels in the schoolyard and instantly recognized her raw potential. He invited her to join his new gymnastics school, where he could train young talents to become gymnasts of the highest level. In 1968, at the age of 7, Nadia started her serious gymnastics journey under Bela's watchful eye. She was one of the first students at the gym he and his wife, Marta, had set up in her hometown of Gheorgheni. Every day she trained for 3 hours, pushing herself harder and harder with each session. Thankfully, Nadia's gymnastics school was just a stone's throw from her home, so she didn't have to spend hours commuting, though she faced some tough moments early on, with plenty of falls during her early amateur competitions. Bela never lost faith in her. His persistence paid off, and soon enough those falls turned into smooth, effortless landings. By the time she was 9 in 1970, Nadia had already stepped onto the competitive stage as a proud member of her hometown team. In an incredible achievement, she became the youngest gymnast ever to win the Romanian nationals. The following year, in 1971, she made her international debut at a dual junior meet against Yugoslavia. Not only did she win her first all-around title, but she also helped her team take home the gold. Over the next few years, she kept making a name for herself in national competitions across Romania and in friendly meets with countries like Hungary, Italy, and Poland. At just 11 years old in 1973, Nadia hit a major milestone at the Junior Friendship Tournament, an international meet for young gymnasts. She grabbed the all-around gold and added wins in the vault and uneven bars, proving she was a force to be reckoned with on the global stage. In 1975, at 13, Nadia made an even bigger splash. At the European Championships in ski in Norway, she nearly swept every event, winning gold in everything except the floor exercise, where she still managed a solid second place. This was just the start of her rise to gymnastics greatness. Later that year, she bagged the all-around title at the Champions All competition and won the vault, beam, and bars at the Romanian Nationals. Nadia's talent was clear to everyone, but her path wasn't all smooth sailing. One of her biggest rivals was Soviet gymnast Nelly Kim, who was older, more experienced, and already a multi-time Olympic and world champion. But Nadia wasn't intimidated. She was driven, constantly pushing herself to innovate and refine her skills. Their rivalry became one of the most exciting stories in gymnastics, with the two battling for gold medals at major competitions throughout the late 1970s, pushing each other to reach new heights. In March 1976, 14-year-old Nadia crossed the Atlantic to compete in the first-ever American Cup at Madison Square Garden in New York City. The world was about to witness her magic firsthand. The American Cup was Nadia's big chance to make a splash in the States, and she definitely didn't disappoint. At the event, she crossed paths with a young American gymnast named Bart Connor. While Bart remembered the meeting fondly, Nadia wouldn't recall it until years later. But that casual encounter would eventually lead to a beautiful friendship. And down the line, a lifelong love story. Just a few months later, Nadia's name would be cemented in Olympic history forever. The 1976 Summer Olympics in Montreal, Canada were just around the corner, and Nadia was ready to show the world what she was capable of. On July 18, 1976, the world watched in awe as 14-year-old Nadia took to the uneven bars at the Montreal Olympics. Her performance was jaw-dropping. When she dismounted, the judges knew they'd seen something extraordinary. They awarded her a perfect 10, but there was one problem. The scoreboard wasn't built to display such a high score. The technology simply couldn't keep up with Nadia's brilliance. Instead of the expected 10, the board showed a 1. The crowd was confused at first, but then erupted into cheers as they realized what had happened. Nadia had made history, becoming the first gymnast in Olympic history to score a perfect 10. News of her perfect score spread like wildfire. It wasn't just about the number, it was a moment that completely changed the game for gymnastics. Nadia had redefined what was possible. She became an overnight sensation, forever linked to the 1976 Montreal Olympics and that iconic image of her soaring through the air. The rest of the competition was a blur of brilliance as Nadia went on to win 3 gold medals, a silver and a bronze. But Nadia's impact wasn't just personal, it was a game-changer for the entire gymnastics world. At just 14, she became the first Romanian gymnast to win the all-around title, and her age set a record that still stands today. Back then, the rules were different. Gymnasts only had to be 14 by the first day of competition, which allowed Nadia to compete at such a young age. Today, however, there are stricter age requirements, meaning gymnasts must be at least 16 to compete in the Olympics. Because of this, Nadia's record is unlikely to be broken. Nadia's influence stretched far beyond breaking records, though. Her perfect 10s and graceful routines captured the hearts of audiences worldwide. Suddenly, gymnastics was on everyone's radar. Nadia became a superstar. Her face was on posters all over Romania, and her name buzzed across TV screens everywhere. The BBC named Nadia Overseas Sports Personality of the Year, and the Associated Press crowned her Female Athlete of the Year. Back in Romania, her achievements were met with national pride and celebration. The country's communist regime, under the rule of Nicolae Ceausescu, couldn't resist basking in her success. They showered her with accolades, and the biggest honor came directly from Ceausescu himself. He declared Nadia a hero of socialist labor, making her the youngest Romanian ever to receive such a prestigious title. It was a double-edged sword, though, a public celebration of her incredible success, but also a way for the regime to claim her as their own propaganda icon. While Nadia's flawless routines dazzled the world at the 1976 Olympics, something else unexpectedly became part of her legacy. Nadia's theme. Originally called Cotton's Dream, this instrumental piece wasn't even written for her. It was part of the soundtrack for the 1971 film Bless the Beasts and Children, and later became the theme music for the American soap opera The Young and the Restless. But then something magical happened. In 1976, American sportscaster Robert Ryer used Cotton's Dream to accompany slow-motion montages of Nadia's Olympic performances on ABC's Wide World of Sports. The music and Nadia's graceful movements synced together perfectly, creating a harmony that struck a chord with viewers. The song quickly climbed the charts and became a top 10 hit in the fall of 1976. Recognizing the connection between the song and Nadia's rise to fame, composers Barry Dvorak and Perry Botkin Jr. officially changed the name of the piece to Nadia's Theme. It was a fitting tribute to the 14-year-old gymnast who had rewritten the gymnastics rulebook and captured the hearts of millions. Interestingly, though, Nadia never actually performed to Nadia's theme. Her floor exercise music was a different melody entirely. In 1977, Nadia returned to the European Championships, eager to defend her all-around title and continue her reign as gymnastics queen. Once again, she delivered stunning performances, captivating audiences with her skill and grace. However, her triumph was marred by controversy. During the event finals, questions were raised about the scoring of some routines. Some judges felt there were discrepancies and inconsistencies in how points were awarded, raising concerns about the fairness and accuracy of the judging. The situation at the 1977 European Championships drew the attention of Romania's dictator, Nicolae Ceausescu, who was notorious for his strict control and zero tolerance for dissent. Furious over the perceived injustice toward his country's gymnasts, Ceausescu made a drastic decision. He ordered the entire Romanian team, including Nadia, to pack their bags and leave the competition immediately. The move stunned the crowd and sparked international outrage. Nadia's journey after her 1976 Olympic triumph was far from easy. The weight of fame, constant scrutiny from the Romanian regime, and the physical demands of her sport began to take a toll on the young gymnast. After the 1977 European Championships, Nadia was forced to train away from her usual coach and friends, leaving her feeling isolated in Bucharest. The emotional and physical changes she was experiencing as she grew older only added to the pressure. Her gymnastics skills began to suffer, and she found herself battling deep unhappiness. On top of this, Nadia had to deal with the ever-present eyes of the Securitate, Romania's secret police. Their constant surveillance created a suffocating atmosphere, stripping away her sense of freedom and privacy. In August 1978, while staying at the August Sports Hotel in Bucharest, the pressure reached a breaking point. Nadia was stopped by an official while simply trying to do some laundry. Feeling trapped and overwhelmed, she returned to her room in despair and consumed a cup of laundry detergent. She was rushed to the hospital and spent 2 days there, recovering from the incident. Behind Nadia's dazzling success, the story was far darker than most people realized. Her triumphs, the perfect tens, the Olympic glory, and the way she transformed gymnastics often overshadowed the web of secrecy and control that lurked in the background, orchestrated by the Romanian regime. As early as 1975, rumors had begun circulating about the level of surveillance Nadia was under. The Securitate had infiltrated her training center in Onești, planting informants among her coaches and staff. These watchers reported on Nadia's every move, sending regular handwritten updates back to the government. No one was safe from the watchful eye of the Securitate, not even Nadia's closest confidants. Bela Caroli, her legendary coach, had his own code name, Tona, and he too became an informant. He was required to report on his coaching methods and the progress of his gymnasts. Even Nadia's choreographer, who designed her stunning floor routines, was also an undercover observer. Unlike Bela, the choreographer's reports focused on raising concerns about Bela's harsh training methods and the toll they were taking on the young athletes. Par, Nadia's choreographer, described the cruel treatment the gymnasts endured: taunts, humiliating punishments, and even physical abuse. Slaps, fear, and the constant pressure to meet impossible standards took their toll. Sadly, his pleas for change fell on deaf ears. As long as Bela delivered medals for Romania, the government ignored his methods, prioritizing national pride over the well-being of the athletes in his care. His training sessions became infamous for their grueling intensity. 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. Nadia and her teammates pushed their bodies to the limit, constantly monitored by their coach. Weight became an obsession, with Bela carefully overseeing each girl's progress, even resorting to food deprivation for those he deemed too heavy. The psychological and physical consequences were devastating, with bulimia becoming a rampant issue within the team. Nadia's story confirms what we often forget. The path to athletic greatness is paved with unseen hardships. The legendary gymnast trained under an iron fist, pushed beyond her limits in a system that cared more about medals than the well-being of the young athletes. Her every move was monitored and her voice stifled. This isn't a story of the past alone. Today, whispers of abuse, manipulation, and overwhelming pressure continue to haunt the world of elite athletics. Young athletes, often far from home and family, carry burdens invisible to the cheering crowds. As we celebrate the next Simone Biles or Gabby Douglas, we must remember the unseen battles they may be fighting. Have you heard or witnessed the struggles faced by athletes? How can we, as fans and supporters, help create a system that prioritizes their well-being alongside their athletic achievements? Share your thoughts in the comments. Nadia's journey took a dramatic turn after her suicide attempt in 1978, marking a roller coaster ride of highs and lows. The 1978 World Championships in Strasbourg saw Nadia struggle with the physical changes that had come since Montreal. She had grown taller and heavier. Despite a fall from the uneven bars, Nadia finished fourth in the all-around, behind 3 Soviet gymnasts. But her resilience shone through when she went on to win gold on the balance beam and silver on the vault. After the World Championships, Nadia was allowed to return to Deva, the training center run by Bela Karolyi. Despite the harsh training regimen, Nadia persevered and continued to shine. In 1979, she made history by becoming the first gymnast, male or female, to win 3 consecutive European all-around titles. This achievement firmly cemented her as a legend in the sport. Later that year, Nadia traveled to the World Championships in Fort Worth, Texas, where she dominated the compulsory rounds, leading the all-around competition. But just before the optional rounds of the team competition, Nadia injured her wrist on her metal grip buckle. What seemed like a minor injury quickly turned into a serious case of blood poisoning, forcing her into the hospital. Even though doctors ordered her to rest, Nadia's determination to help her team never wavered. Against medical advice, she left the hospital and competed on the balance beam, delivering a breathtaking performance that scored a 9.95. Her heroic effort played a key role in helping Romania win its first ever team gold medal. However, this act of selflessness took a toll on her health. She spent several days recovering in the hospital and had to undergo surgery for the infected wound. The unforgettable American tour and defection drama followed. The 1980 Moscow Olympics were unlike any other for Nadia. Set against the backdrop of the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan and a US-led boycott, Nadia and her Romanian team walked into what could only be called the Lion's Den, competing on Soviet turf. Despite the political tensions, Nadia soared to victory, claiming 2 gold medals and 2 silver medals. Yet her wins were not without controversy. The scoring in both the all-around and floor exercise competitions sparked protests from her coach, Bela Karolyi. His complaints, aired live on television, caused a stir. In Nadia's words, Bela's outburst led to anger from the Romanian government, who felt that he had publicly humiliated them. His life became more difficult after that, with his relationship with the authorities deteriorating. The incident highlighted the complex power dynamics at play, with Nadia caught in the middle of it all. In 1981, a new chapter unfolded for Nadia. The Romanian Gymnastics Federation reached out with an exciting opportunity. She was chosen to participate in a special tour of the United States called Nadia 881 Now. This wouldn't be just any tour. It was a high-profile event, with Nadia as the star attraction. Her coaches, the ever-present Bela and Marta Karolyi, would lead the group. The tour promised to give Nadia a chance to experience a world far removed from the watchful eyes of the Romanian regime. For Nadia, it was an opportunity to breathe a little, outside the confines of constant surveillance. The Nadia 881 tour held another intriguing possibility: a reunion with a young American gymnast Nadia had met briefly before. Yes, Bart Connor, the same boy she had crossed paths with during the 1976 Olympics, would be sharing the tour bus with her team. Their first encounter had been fleeting, but those brief moments had left a spark. As Nadia later recalled, Bart was cute. He bounced around the bus talking to everyone. He was incredibly friendly and fun. Just as Nadia's American tour was coming to an end, something shocking happened that would change the course of her life. On the very last day, her coaches, Bela and Marta Karolyi, along with the Romanian team choreographer Gaia Poser, made a dramatic decision. They defected. Before their defection, Bela had subtly hinted at his intentions, even asking Nadia if she wanted to join them. At the time, Nadia, still young and yearning for home, had no desire to leave Romania. She assured her coach that her heart was set on returning to her familiar life. Little did she know, though, that her refusal to defect would have drastic consequences. The Romanian authorities, viewing her as a national treasure and a potential flight risk, clamped down on her freedom. Her movements within the country were restricted, and the once boundless world beyond its borders became nearly impossible to access. Her every move was closely monitored, effectively turning her into a prisoner in her own country. In that same year, Nadia competed in what would be her final major event, the World University Games in her hometown of Bucharest. What should have been a triumphant farewell was marred by controversy. casting a shadow over her victory. The World University Games were meant for athletes enrolled in higher education. But Romania, despite having only Nadia as a competitor eligible by age, somehow won gold. This was made possible by what many perceived as blatant manipulation of the scoring system. While Nadia delivered competent routines, they weren't her usual dazzling displays. Yet, she received near-perfect scores across the all-around, vault, bars, and floor exercise categories. Even seasoned journalists familiar with Nadia's peak performances were dismayed by these inflated scores, calling it disheartening to witness such obvious favoritism. After the Nadia 81 tour, silence descended upon Nadia's story. The Romanian government, still fearful of her defection, kept a tight grip on her movements. Travel abroad, once a regular perk of her celebrity, became a distant dream. After her retirement, Nadia was confined within the borders of Romania, allowed only a few carefully monitored trips to Moscow and Cuba. While the world wondered about her fate, Nadia found purpose in a smaller arena. She became a coach for young gymnasts. From all accounts, she was a dedicated and passionate mentor, earning the respect and affection of her trainees. These quieter years saw her nurturing the next generation of talent, sharing the knowledge and skills that had propelled her to Olympic glory. The 1984 Los Angeles Olympics presented a strange twist for Nadia. While many communist nations boycotted the Games in retaliation for the US-led boycott of Moscow in 1980, Romania surprisingly chose to participate. This fueled speculation, with Nadia later suggesting in her memoir that Romania may have struck a deal with the United States to prevent any defections. However, Nadia's experience in Los Angeles was far from the usual Olympic fanfare. Instead of competing, she served as an observer, a bittersweet role that kept her away from the competitive arena, but offered a chance to reconnect with her former coach, Bela Karolyi. Bela, now a U.S. citizen after defecting with his wife, Marta, just 3 years prior, was coaching the rising American star Mary Lou Retton in Los Angeles. Watching her win 5 medals, including a gold, must have been a complex experience for Nadia, a mix of pride for her old mentor and a pang of loss for the life she could have had if she had followed him. However, reuniting with Bela wasn't easy. The Romanian delegation, wary of another defection, kept a close eye on Nadia, effectively preventing any meaningful contact between her and her former coach. That same year, Nadia finally drew the curtain on her competitive career. Her retirement was marked by a grand event, a farewell to Nadia, which reverberated beyond the Iron Curtain. Dignitaries and reporters from across the globe descended upon Romania to witness this significant moment. It was a bittersweet celebration, acknowledging her achievements while recognizing the end of an era. Nadia's life after retirement was far from the fairy tale many imagined. The sparkle of Olympic glory faded for Nadia, replaced by the harsh reality of isolation and control. In her memoir, she reflected on how her life took on a new bleakness after her gymnastics career ended. The financial freedom she had once known, supplementing her family's income, vanished. "There was no longer any need to keep me happy," she wrote. She became, in her own words, a marionette, expected to obey as she had her entire life. However, Nadia's spirit refused to be completely subdued. On a cold November night in 1989, just weeks before the Romanian Revolution, she made a daring decision. She joined a group of other Romanians determined to escape the oppressive regime. Guided by Constantine Panai, a Romanian defector who would later become an American citizen, they embarked on a treacherous journey. Walking mostly at night to avoid patrols, they crossed Hungary and Austria on foot. After days of danger, they finally reached a plane that would take them to freedom in the United States. Nadia's escape sparked controversy. Many saw her as a homewrecker for accepting help from the married Constantine Panai, who had 4 children. In her memoir, Nadia painted a different picture, describing how she had been trapped under Panai's control, subjected to mistreatment, and living a life far from the freedom she had envisioned. With the help of another Romanian immigrant, Alexander Stefu, Nadia finally broke free from Panai's grip. She found a warm welcome in the Stefu family and began rebuilding her life. She even landed a modeling contract with Jockey, showcasing a new side of her talent and beauty. Tragedy struck again when Stefu died in a car accident, and grief threatened to engulf Nadia. However, she found solace in an unexpected connection. Bart Connor, the former Olympic gymnast with whom she had shared brief encounters years ago, reached out and invited her to Oklahoma in 1991. Nadia decided to move to Oklahoma, where Bart had started a gymnastics school and wanted her to help. She found a welcoming home with the family of Paul Zier, who eventually became her manager. For a while, Nadia and Bart were just friends, sharing their passion for gymnastics and building a strong bond. It took 4 years for their friendship to blossom into something deeper, and they finally got engaged. Their 1996 wedding was a unique homecoming for Nadia. After years of living under the watchful eye of the Romanian regime, she returned to a completely different country. The communist regime had fallen and Romania was embracing a new capitalist era. The Romanian government, eager to reclaim its Olympic star, welcomed Nadia back as a national hero. Their wedding ceremony, held in Bucharest, became a national event, with cameras broadcasting the festivities live, allowing all of Romania to share in the couple's joyous celebration. After saying their vows, Nadia and Bart held their reception in a place that symbolized the transformation of their homeland, the former presidential palace. In 1997, Nadia and Bart's love story spilled onto the screen when they guest starred on the famous show, Touched by an Angel. They showcased their talents with a brief floor exercise routine, reminding everyone of their graceful partnership both on and off the mat. By 2001, Nadia had officially become a naturalized U.S. citizen, solidifying her connection to the country that had welcomed her with open arms. While embracing her American identity, she also held on to her Romanian roots, choosing to maintain dual citizenship. In 2006, their love story took a beautiful turn with the birth of their son, Dylan, adding a new dimension to Nadia's life and filling it with the joys and challenges of parenthood. 6 years later, in 2012, Nadia stood tall as the featured speaker at the 50th Annual Independence Day Naturalization Ceremony in Montello. This was a monumental occasion, marking the first time an athlete was invited to address a gathering of new American citizens. Nadia's love for gymnastics never dimmed. Far from retiring to a life of leisure, she remains actively engaged in the sport, spreading her passion and knowledge in many ways. In Oklahoma, Nadia and Bart have built their own haven for aspiring gymnasts. Their gym is more than just a training ground. It's a community where young athletes can learn from the best, soaking in the wisdom of Olympic champions. Nadia's presence itself is an inspiration, embodying dedication and excellence. Her reach extends far beyond the walls of her own gym. Through Perfect 10 Productions, a company she co-founded with Bart, Nadia continues to share her love for the sport with the world. Their TV productions bring the magic of gymnastics into living rooms, keeping the sport alive in the hearts of fans and inspiring future generations. Nadia's dedication to her homeland is equally inspiring. She remains a passionate supporter of Romania's gymnastics program, offering not just financial aid, but also her invaluable personal support. Through her initiatives, Romanian gymnasts have the chance to train in the United States, gaining exposure to different training methods and cultures.